Hello, welcome to Model Kit Stuff and welcome to another first impressions video, and today we're looking at one of these. It's Miniart's 1:35 scale Ukrainian BMR-1 with KMT9. Now I think you can buy that as a separate kit, but it's already in here for this one, and it's basically a mine clearing roller, I think. The box is the usual Miniart style. We've got the instructions, and then we've got a big bag full of lots of plastic. So I'm going to open this up. Let's take a better look at the kit. Right then, let's have a look at the instructions. So typical colourful A4 staple bound instruction manual in Miniart's usual way, where we've got part of the picture and then part of the technical drawing. Tells us that we have a highly detailed model, which is reassuring. All hatches can be opened or closed, though we don't have an interior in this. Workable tracks, photo etch parts, clear parts, and decal sheet for 4 variants. Our kit number is 37043, and usually we get 2 of the paint options at the front and 2 at the back, and this appears to be the same. So let's have a look at what we've got. So option 1, she is in UN markings, and it tells us that it's the 3rd Ukrainian Separated Engineering Battalion, 2000 to 2006. United Nations interim force in the Lebanon. So that's her in her peacekeeping role. So overall white pretty much, and it looks like we get a mine sign with it as well, which is nice. Then painting guide number 2, that takes us to 2015 anti-terrorist operation zone in the Ukraine, so that no doubt would be in the east or near the Crimea. So in sort of quite a faded, very dirty looking scheme with a freshly painted green top. So I'm guessing it's based on something or other. And then we've got a sign there which says you have to supply that yourself. We have a decal, but we don't have a sign placard. I'm guessing it's because the decals are different size to that. Oh no, you have to supply that as well. It's a bit of plasterboard, plasticard or something like that. Now, if we go to the back, we should get the other 2. Yeah, so this option is 2019, so this brings you as close to the 2022 invasion, I think, as you're going to get. So all over Ukrainian olive drab type colour. You've got decals, but you need to find the substrate for them. And then we've got one from 2015 which has camouflage on it with black and red oversprayed onto some parts of the. I quite like that scheme, although I think I'm most likely to do the more recent one. But yeah, I quite like that scheme as well. So that's the paint schemes. Let's go back to the start and see what's next. So we then have our sprue map. And what we've got, 1, 2, yeah, just these pages here. So we can see our decal sheet. We've got our paint shout out at the bottom there. So their usual Vallejo, Mr. Colour. They've got Life Colour, Tamiya, AK, Mission Models, and something in Ukrainian, so maybe a brand of paint I'm not aware of, and then the colour names in there. So it's not a huge a range of colours in there, and of course some of them you'll only need depending on which paint option you do. And what we can see is we've got 2, 3 maybe large sprues, and the rest of them on there typically smaller sprues, and a sprue of clear parts, which seems to have a combination of vision blocks and lenses. 2 frets of photo etch, grills. I would guess that's for strapping down equipment and bits and pieces like that. And then we've got the tracks, so 17 lots of tracks. So there's a lot of little sprues there. And as we go into our instructions, we're starting with building up the base, the bottom of the vehicle, the floor pan, the sides going in. So looks like we've got some holes to open up. Then the castings for the running gear are all individual parts, and then the running gear is being assembled. So some of these parts, bits you're not going to see because the tension bars, for example, will all be inside and there's no interior, so there's no reason. It looks like we've got an engine bay separated, so to me it looks like they probably do an interior, full interior version, I would imagine. Okay, so that's our first 3 steps. Step 4, we've got the driving wheels, we've got some armour protection going on the underside, and more bits and pieces to do with the drive wheels, idler wheel and the road wheels, which look like they've got tread on and what have you, which is all very nice. Step 9, that's the continuation, just doing it on the other side, and then we've got a bit of drilling and bits and pieces to do on the side parts of the armour there before we install it. Looks like there's a little location piece that goes on the inside to make sure you get the angle right, so that's a nice little touch. And then depending on which version you're doing, which holes you're opening up, so you're going to have to make that decision early on. Step 15, this is the top plate, and we're already putting tools and bits and pieces on the inside, I think. No, what am I saying? That's the top surface. You can see the vision blocks going in there, so anyhow, then we're bringing those pieces together. Got our front glacis plate there, which is solid, so that's interesting. All the hatches open like it says. We're starting to build up the hatches, and then we've got mud guards going on. All right, and we're putting that on the top, so I think that covers everything but the engine bay by the looks of it. Yeah. Then we've got the back section going on. We're building up more hatches, exhaust, and then the main couplers. We've got lamps there with photo etch and bits and pieces, photo etch wipers for the lenses and stuff. So that's all very nicely detailed, isn't it? Lovely. Then we're building up this back engine bay area, so you've got the the vents and bits and pieces, and we've got the hatches going in, and so you've got all sorts of options here. You could have the hatches open and stuff, although there's nothing inside. But I'm guessing you might be able to source an engine or something, so that might be possible. And then you've got photo etch grill covers and bits and pieces going on. Those look like individual pieces of photo etch. So that's a lot of little pieces of photo etch to put in. That'll be interesting to see. Then we've got the turret bottom going in, so it's like an armoured ring. We've got all sorts of brackets and bits and pieces going on. And then we're building up the gun in its mantle there, and the turret. It's distinctive upside down wok turret, for want of a better description. So that's what it looks like. It looks like a wok upside down, or a lampshade or something. And then you have this armoured circular case that goes over the top of it, which rounds it off. So even though much of that's not going to be seen, they have built it up correctly. So I guess you could show it with it off in certain circumstances, of being repaired or something. It gives you some options. Aerial going on, we've got a canvas bag and some photo etch strapping to go on there. Shows you in profile how that should look, so that's good. 2-part piece of plastic for that, so I imagine that they've got the little positions for the strapping moulded in, so it'll all locate nicely. The horn there, and then we're making up a stowage box. All the wheels going on, and then we're building up the tracks. Looks like the tracks are not handed, so they can go on both sides. Then we've got the front fenders, some form of pipe work, not quite sure for what. Some photo etch brackets and bits and pieces. The end of the mud guards, I'm guessing that's like a rubber skirt or something. We're making up another stowage box. Skirt sides going on. They're all joining where their hinge positions are, so you could uncouple them and show them hinged up, depending on what you're doing with how you display it. And then you've got some more hinged covers going on there. Got some form of grab handles or something going on. Then our storage box, just doing the other side. And that is a log of wood, so probably to help it get out of a ditching situation or something like that. Again, photo etch to strap it on, so that's nice. Then we've got little photo etch clips here for having these up or down, so that's interesting. Have to study that and understand that more clearly. We've got some spare track being placed on, depending on your options, A or B. As always with Miniart, you've got to source your own cable. So I could do with, actually, I've got a few kits that need that now, so I could do with actually sourcing some, I think. So that, I think, completes the vehicle in its own right. So there's 50 steps to build the vehicle, and then step 51 picks up the mine roller element. So we've got multiple parts on this, 1, 2. So you've got 2 halves, and then you've got all these individual little square plates at each one of these points. and you're making 4 of those and 4 of those and then 4 of those, so that gives you that assembly when you're finished. And you see you should have 2 of those assemblies, I think. Nice clear drawings. The instructions are lovely and clear actually, nice big pictures, very clear what's going on. Building up the back of the roller assembly, we've got these, not quite sure what they are, they sort of stick up in the air. It's almost like they're for adjusting the pressure or something like that. I'm at a hazard of a guess. Got some more photo etch there. That's the frame there being made up, 2 halves of the frame. Some other structure going onto the frame. Not quite sure what they are. They look like some form of pneumatics or something maybe. I'm guessing the frame can be raised and lowered to engage it. But all sorts of little bits and pieces there building that frame up. Got some heavy springs there, be interested to see what they look like. It's quite a busy little framework, isn't it? There's lots of little brackets and bits and pieces on it. And then at step 70 we are starting to put on, so what we opened up right at the beginning, we are now putting these parts into those openings. So this is the mounting brackets for the equipment. You can see it being built up there. And then we're mounting it on, so we've got it looks like it'll swivel, saying do not glue, so it's looking like this will be movable. So you can see the frame on there, and we will have to use the towing cables. So that's worth noting. Wonder if that's just in the up position or all the time. Looks like all the time. We're then putting the roller wheels on. And then we've got, oh right, we've got some blanking plates if you're not putting the mini roller on. Okay, so you can mine roll it, and if you're not, then you've got some blanking plates to allow it to be located. So okay, they give you some options right at the end. As always, look through the instructions first, because some of the decisions you're making, you need to go right to the back end to see what you need to be doing before you paint. So there you have it, 75 steps. Shall we have a look at some plastic? So our first sprue is dealing with a number of different areas of the build. So first thing we can say is that we don't have sprues with parts grouped to what we're building. So we're going to start here with, these are the side pieces, and then we've got the underside of the vehicle there, which is nicely done. Now at first glance it looks a bit soft molded, but actually that's just how this actually looks. You can see there is some nice crisp molding in places. So when you've got a combination of the two, then the soft look is supposed to be like that. We've got some nice welding detail around there as well. Looks really good. Yeah, really quite like that. Then we've got some of the smaller parts, the drive covers, castings, which look nice, and some of these end plates, parts of the exhaust, has lovely detail. And that's the little tarpaulin, and as I suspected, we've got little placement points there for the photo etch straps, so that's all very nice. And then our last pieces here, we've got, that's an internal dividing wall between the driving compartment and the engine compartment. See, there would be a fan in there if we were doing the interior. We've got the top plate there over the engine cover, and we've got some of the side plates there with little placement marks which actually look like welds, which is a really nice way of doing that. We've got some nice weld detail there. I have to say, It's nicer than the weld detail that I've recently seen on the Ryfield Models Tiger. It's not uniform in any way, it looks very natural. So yeah, I think that all looks really nice. My new camera angle, I think, works well when we're looking at these sprues. Okay, I'm not going to work through these in order particularly, partly because I need to repack them in a way that they fit back in the box, and partly because we've got so many of some of these sprues that it'd be a bit of a nightmare to work through it. This one is Sprue TA, and we can see we've got the idler wheel there. We seem to have two of those with these sort of teeth sticking out of the side, which is the idler wheel. You can see how they come together. There's a little bit of flash there, and there's a bit of flash in there as well, but it's nothing major. It'll easily come out. And then we've got a hub which has got some nice bolt detail on. Everything's nice and symmetrical. Yeah, nicely crisply moulded. It's a little bit rough on the teeth edges on this one, but that one's okay. And we've got a big piece of flash there, so a little bit of clean up to do, but the parts look really nice. Detail is lovely. And we have more than one of this. Once again, we have more than one of this one as well. This is WB. Drive sprocket this time, front and back. Again, we've got some flash there that we're going to have to deal with. Nice little detailed hub. Got some location pins there, which should make that nice and easy to assemble. And the sprue gates are between the teeth. Yeah, you'll have to get in with a little knife and just chip that out. But I suppose it's better than the tip of the teeth where you might have had the risk of deforming the part. So yeah, and then I would imagine that is the mounting pin that then gets covered up by the hub. Again, lots of lovely detail. Sprue FF, tiny little thing, more sprue than parts. We've got what look like two lamp covers, lamp backs, a couple of grab handles, and some tie downs or brackets or something. TC now, and again we have two of these, and we can see some slide moulding going on here on these little housings, which are part of the suspension system. So they're very nicely moulded. And then we've got these other housings here. And then we've got some little tiny things, not quite sure what they are, but I'm guessing they're all suspension. Now, interestingly, I think I said there's two, but I think there's 4 of these. Yeah, here's another one to prove my point. 2 of them, these were damaged. What's happened is you can see where it's stressed there, that has been pushed down with the weight of other parts on top of it, and it's pushed against part of the sprue on another one that was sticking up and has broken, and that's happened on at least 2 of them. Here's another one we can see. So I think there was 4 of these in total, and I think at least 2, possibly 3 of them were broken. So I'm not quite sure what that part is. It is very delicate, however, and we might have to be making some wire replacements, I think. But yeah, some very delicate little parts, including, look at that teeny little hook there. But other than that part being broken on most of the sprues, everything else is fine. Now I've got 4 of these, and these are dealing with the roller. We can see all those little tread plates, and Those aren't indentations, we can see right through those holes there. So each one of those has 4 little square holes in it. That's really nicely done. And the parts there that build up for the frame for this, some nice detail on those. They're going to really look the part when they're built up. And the fall of these, because they sort of hinge, they swing as it goes around, that looks really natural as well. And no doubt, yeah, there's little pins on the back, so you can't do anything but line them up correctly, which is nice. Yeah, they're going to be a little bit of fun to build, aren't they? Very nice again. Okay, we have 2 of these Sprue Fs. We've got all sorts of little brackets and bits and pieces that will go on the outside, and some grab handles. They're very thin. They're also got a bit of heavy seam on them, almost flash. We've got shovels there. They're quite nicely done with the little fastener heads on them. All sorts of little pins. And then we've got slide molded parts here, so more suspension housings, the toe cable eyes, which is open, so nice to be able to thread some toe cable in once you've sourced some. And then we've got all sorts of little covers and brackets, and I think they're handles there for the various different hatches. So lots of tiny little parts there. Some toe-in hooks. Detail is absolutely stunning. Yet again, this is HO, and we've got at least 2 of these, I think, maybe more. 2-part housings of some type. These look like dampeners, again, I think for the suspension system. And then we've got some tool holders. I think those get used for holding down the spare tracks. I might be wrong. And then we've got a tiny slide molded part there. Doesn't that look lovely? Not much in the way of seam on any of these parts, just the little bits of flash we've seen, and no sink. Everything's really, really nice. You've got to love a Miniart kit, haven't you? We have 2 of these, and this time we do have the cord on this towing guide, but this is for the mine roller assembly being attached to the vehicle. So all the parts on here will be connected to the mine roller. You can see these are the little brackets that go onto the tank hull. We've got that spring. I'm not sure if it's a spring or whether it's some form of rubber cover or something like that. It's quite nicely done. Obviously slide molded, so we've got an opening. But that looks really quite nice, doesn't it? Apologies, the light's changing because the sun's breaking through. Some lovely detail on there, though. I think we only have 1 of these. This is FG, and I'm not sure if this is to do with the tank or the mine roller, but I think it might be the mine roller. We've got some of those brackets with bolts on the connecting parts. We've got a fairly hefty bracket of some type here that has some lovely weld detail on the side there. I can feel it. You can hardly see it, but I can feel it under my finger there. Some little gasket type things, not quite sure, and some little pipework runs. This will all go on the outside of something. Some lovely, lovely moulding going on. And of course, small little sprues like that means we don't need any ejector pins or anything, so that is lovely. Sprue HD now, and that is another multiple. We've got some suspension parts, I think, there, or brackets or something. some little hull hooks and handles, and what looks like a locking latch for a hatch. I'm not quite sure what that is, but you can see the weld going round there. Very nice. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, this sprue here this is KD, and we have some more of those parts that we saw a minute ago, which I think are dampeners of some type. We appear to have different idler wheels, and those rings, I'm guessing, are connected to them in some way. And then we appear to have a different type of drive sprocket, and its mounting pins, hubs and bits and pieces, so all connected with that. So I don't know whether that's a different option within the box or something like that, probably. Very lovely, the moulding. Can't get over how detailed these parts are. Just really nice. Okay, we have 6 of Sprue WJ, which has got road wheels on, which we've got some nice rubber texturing there of the tracks. Fortunately, the sprue gates connect on the center seam, so some of it will get removed, but you'd probably be hiding it in the tracks, or possibly when you come to do a little bit of road damage or something like that. We've got the hubs there, and we've got a torsion bar for it and some form of mounting pin. So yeah, we've got 6 of those. That all looks nice, doesn't it? Sprue HM, we have 4 of these, and it's more road wheels, pretty much the same as we've seen, but in a slightly different orientation. So I'm guessing these are slightly different in some way. They all have a little bit of flash, a little bit of cleanup needed, and the same comment about where the sprue gates are, but everything's crisply moulded, very, very sharp, and certainly look the part, don't they? Sprue FB, and we've got 2 of these, lots of tiny little pins of some type, not quite sure for what, and then more connection points, blanking plates, so these might be in connection with the mine roller. Got a little handle there and some more rods. Some of these are very small, some careful cleanup required, but the detail is very nice. No issues with them. Okay, Sprue GB. We've got the coupler hatch there. We can see that it's hollow there for the vision ports, which is nicely done. All looks nice and chunky. We've got a little separate hatch there that's moulded in. Hinge pin there. Some nice detail on the inside of it as well if you wanted to have it hinged up, which we might do. I'll explain more about that towards the end of the video. Then we've got the stowage boxes that we saw in the instructions being made up there. They're nicely done, very delicate with the little hinges and connections there. Some more handles, brackets, the other little storage box, tool storage or whatever it is. So sides, ends, top and bottom. Yeah, all very crisply moulded. All looks good, that. BC, we've got some slide moulding of whatever that is, little connection point on the end. Now this is all to do with the mine roller again. There's those little sort of rods that stick up. Not quite sure what they are. I guess they're for tensioning, but it's a very wild guess. Got some form of maybe pneumatic casing. Some of the casts, all sorts of brackets, and some spring detail there. Looks like it's adjustable as well as more mounting blanks, plates with hexagon fastener heads, all very nicely detailed. See the little fastener heads there. No flash, no sink, and as always, no ejector pin marks. Lovely jubbly. Okay, this next sprue, JC, is a bit bowed. Let's see there, it's if I try and line it up on there, you can see how bowed that is. I don't think it's causing an issue for any of the parts. We've got a lot of quite thin parts on here with, well, that's the outside edge of the exhaust there, but we've got lamps, some form of metal rods that go on the outside. And look at that. We're going to have to take that off very carefully. Some form of ring, various fasteners, hatches with the handles moulded on. Might want to take them off and replace them with your own. And then we have the log, and that's quite nicely textured. It's got some splits in the bark there, or maybe been stripped from its bark even, not sure. There's a seam going all the way around it, but it's not too heavy. There is no detail on the end, so rings or anything like that. As I look at it, can't get that to focus, but the texturing on it is nice. Under a wash, that'll look superb. So yeah, again, a very nice set of parts. Okay, Sprue CB, and again this is dealing with the mine roller. This is our frame here, two sides of the same thing, and then some more parts for it. These are all fairly large parts, well, relatively speaking, I guess. Some of them are quite detailed, some very nice moulding on those. Detail is lovely. Little shackle points, I think, for that. Not sure what most of these are, but the detail is very nice on them. Surface detail is good. We've got some weld seams going along the edges there, which will look brilliant under a wash and a dry brush. Yeah, very nice. So let's have a proper look. Sprue C, one of the other larger sprues now, and we've got the mud guards here at the top, which have got some very fine hinge detail moulded onto that, really fine, which we saw in the instructions, and then some of these side plates that I think they can be optionally up or down. So these ones here that join at the hinges on the side plates there. The top grill, or part of it, we have to build that up a little bit. The front mud flaps, again connected at the hinge, which is a lovely place to connect it. Makes all the sense in the world. Very thin part that. If I turn that over, you know, it's not thick in any way. Then we've got the rear ones with the sort of the flap, material flap going around. I think it's some form of rubberized material, isn't it? And then some brackets there with some nice fastener detail. more of the side skirts, and then the other mud flap. And then in the middle there we've got all sorts of little brackets and cables and bits and pieces. Turn that over. You can see there's some nice detail inside the mud flaps there. We've got the inside of the pressed metal ridges, which is nice to see. Yeah, really nice. Sprue D, we've got our top plate here. It's got all sorts of circular detail on there for various things. There's welds on there and things. I'm guessing that's things that might be welded onto the inside surface, I'm not sure. But we've got the turret there, cupola and another hatch. You see vision blocks there, so I'm guessing that's drivers or something. Then we've got the inner turret and outer turret, I guess. You can see the welding seams on there, really nice. Lovely texture. And down there. And then the original inner, again with lots of lovely welding seams on. This is our sort of armoured plate for underneath. I've got to say the welding all looks really nice and natural. It's not uniform. There's no repeat patterns. Then we've got the main gun, which, yeah, is slide moulded, so it is hollowed out. A secondary gun there, not hollowed out. Some hinges and brackets and various tiny details along the edge there. Hatch, we'll have a look underneath that in a minute. Gun mantles, nicely detailed. And then that's our sort of front plate, isn't it? You can see all that welding on. Really nice. And then that's our back plate there. Again, really nicely welded. Let's have a look at the other side. There's not a lot of detail to see, but you can see underside of some of these parts does have detail. Let's see, can you... There we go, and there's our open gun. Lovely. I'm going to open the bag, but you know what they are. Lots and lots of lovely individual track links. We can see some of the pins here have broken off on the ends. Bag's possibly not quite wide enough, but I think they're broken at the point where you'd remove them anyway. At this end they're not so bad, but we can see that that is really just a case of cutting the pin off, popping it in, and that should be fully workable tracks. Something to look forward to. Plastic parts are the clear parts, and we have two of these sprues here. This is FE or FA, not quite sure. And as we saw in the instructions, we've got a number of vision blocks which all look very nice. And then we've got different types of vision blocks there. So we've got what, 3 different types of vision blocks, and then we've got some glazing and some lenses, lamps and lights and that sort of stuff. So 2 sets of those, probably to make sure that we've got enough vision blocks. But they look really nice, don't they? Happy with them. Next we have the 2 frets of photo etch, and interestingly one says M73 on the top and the other says M77 on it. What quite that means, I am not sure. But we've got the engine grills. Now, even though it's been in the cardboard, these do have some dents in them. We might be able to just roll that flat, press that flat on a hard surface. But we might just accept it as a bit of battle damage. We've got the nicely depicted straps there for the tarpaulin, brackets for lamps. Those are all those little individual parts we saw in the instructions, which go from louvres. So that will be interesting. And then those are the parts for the spare links and bits and pieces, tying them down, various straps and brackets, and some little handles there. So I don't know whether that means we can replace the plastic parts that were moulded on. It's a nice option if we can. And then the little buckles that we saw for some of the hinged plates on the mudguards. Yeah, that's all very nice. And then this other smaller piece, we've basically got some form of mounting bracket that needs bending, and then a couple of grab handles, and then 4 plates, which I'm not quite sure what they're for. And then finally we have our decals. So we've got some of the decals around the mines. I hadn't appreciated how large that danger mine sign is, but it is pretty big. And we've got a smaller one there, but even that's pretty big. The UN markings, and then some of the other markings. It's not too bad in terms of carrier film. I've certainly seen worse, but given some of the shapes, I'd expect a fair amount of on some of these. But yeah, they're not the best decals I've ever seen, but they're certainly not the worst. They're thinner than Tamiya, but I've never really had an issue with Miniart decals, so I think they should go down with no issues whatsoever. And they certainly look nicely done, bit slap hazard as per the actual vehicles. Now that is it for the kit, but I decided that I wanted some figures for this kit, so let's have a look at them. So I chose to get some Ukrainian tank crew at rest, and although they don't necessarily fit with this vehicle 100%, they should be good enough. And this is why we might have some of our hatches open, because it might be nice for these guys to be sat on the vehicle, and he might well be sort of sat on the edge of the coupler with his legs dangling in and so on. They're sat on munition boxes. We won't need those munition boxes because it's the wrong munition for the vehicle. So sitting them on the vehicle will make sense. So this is kit number 37067, which is sold separately, and I've flattened the box so I can get it in the kit box. What you get with the figures is 4 of these sprues, which have shells, empty shell case, slide moulded, and then the crate boxes with interior slats for the shells. So those will be really nice on a diorama at some point. We've got all the little adjustable parts there for inside the wooden crates. A little bit of sink on them, but not too bad. 4 of those, so at some point I guess I'm going to have to buy some modern Russian armour, possibly so I can show it blown up in a field and a tank or a tractor trying to pull it away. Figures themselves come on individual sprues. The torso is snapped off on this one, but everything for each individual figure is on each one. So we have this guy sat on a box with a little knife in hand. He's got a separate hand there because he's cutting some meat or some bread or something like that, and he has a separate head. His facial expression is really concentrating on his cutting his meat, really. Quite a heavy seam you're going to have to clear up, and fairly basic ears, but not bad for plastic. You know, for resin he's a little basic, but for plastic he's really quite good actually. And a bit of a Mohican haircut. I think the trouser creases and everything look natural, so yeah, definitely not the worst Miniart figures I've seen. And then there's nothing on his back particularly, and what looks like a vest chest. So that's the first figure. Second figure, this is a guy with a hat on. You've got the separate earpieces there. Again, his facial expression, well, he's a bit expressionless, I guess. We've got two separate arms. They're quite flashy, but once cleaned up should be okay. He's sort of stood up leaning. Quite a bit of seam to clean up. It's always harder to mould figures than other parts. And then quite a nice torso there. Natural fall of what he's wearing. Yeah, I think that looks alright. Just a little bit of clean up to do with the flash and bits and pieces. Figure 3. I really like the hands, open splayed fingers, all natural. Looks really good. Another one with a hat, this time not quite as flashy. Facial expression seems... They all seem to be looking into the middle distance on these for some reason, but the features are all well defined. So this is another guy sat on a box. Yeah, that looks alright. Just feels a little bit soft moulded in a way. Perhaps just wants a crisping up in places. But all looks very natural. Then our last one, again, another one with a hat. And this guy actually has an expression. He's laughing or smiling or something. So maybe those just didn't find his humour quite as funny as he did. And he sort of sat one leg spread out, so he'll look quite good on the vehicle. Sat on the top of the vehicle, I think, with his hands resting. Yeah, he might be my focal point, I think. There you have it. Miniart's 1:35 scale, Ukrainian service BMR-1 with KMT9 mine roller. What are my first impressions? I have to say it's a whopping kit. This box is absolutely stuffed. So I can't imagine how many parts you'd have if you had a full interior to that. I think it's a really interesting subject. I like quirky, as many of you that follow the channel for a while know. And this is definitely quirky. You only have to look at the box art to see all the scuffs and chips and scratches to see that you can really go to town on this. There's lots and lots of potential with this. I think it's an unusual subject, and that's what I like about it. It's well done. The model seems to be well designed. Everything is crisp. There's a little bit of clean up in places, but nothing major. It's just a little bit of seam clean up. I didn't see any major issues other than those little thin parts that have been broken, which we'll probably be able to replace with some very thin wire, I would imagine. Otherwise, I think you can build this straight out of the box, no worries at all. Looks really, really nice. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this at some point. Probably not going to be a diorama. This is probably going to be a vehicle on its own with the figures on it, and I think that will be enough on a little display base. But we've already seen we've got some bits in here that are destined for another diorama at another point in time. Okay, thank you very much. Hope that was of use to you. If you're interested in getting one of these kits, take care everyone, enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.